Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome into the channel. My name is Brent with Investing on the Go. Today we are continuing our series of no 8 to 5 living from our brokerage using Robinhood. This is going to be week 30 of 2026 update. So in this video, we're going to be doing a quick dive into the market update, looking at the S&P 500, Google and Tesla earnings this week and kind of see what's going on. Then we did have some dividends that we received this week. So we're going to go ahead and cover the dividends that were paid out, which companies paid out, and how many shares paid us, that specific amount. Then we did do some buys. We excessively bought this week because of the market turbulence. So we did do 2 buys this week. And it's a brand new position, so if you guys can guess what it is, try guessing down below by dropping a comment. But we're going to be covering our buys that we performed this week. Then we'll be diving into the updated dividend portfolio income breakdown because of those new shares affected our dividend portfolio and income right now. We'll take a look at what we expect from these shares. And then as they do pay out shares, dividends in the future, we'll make adjustments from there. Then we'll be diving into our dividend and margin journal, kind of also chatting and looking at our Robinhood live dashboard, taking a look at our Friday daily movement and our weekly movement for this week. So that's all that we're going to be covering in today's video. If you guys have any comments or questions, definitely drop it in the comment section down below. Also, if you guys are brand new here to the channel, we cover content of no 8 to 5 living from our brokerage. So I would recommend you guys going down below, smashing that subscribe and smashing the thumbs up if you guys enjoy this content. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at our market update. So here is our 5-day. The S&P 500 put on some interesting momentum, right? On Friday last week, we actually ended pretty high last week. We can see we did kind of pull down into Friday and then open lower last week, but we ended the day on a high note. We can see here on Friday, we ended the S&P 500 was at 748, and our last video going into this week was that with the market trading at 748, we had some hard resistance right around 750 last week. That was working as support last week, but quickly broke. And on Friday it broke, and that 750 that once acted as support would begin to act as resistance. So that was kind of our going into this week, what we wanted to look at. So as we started this week here on Monday, we quickly sold a call option at 748, which we kind of discussed in the earlier video, and we kind of monitored. S&P 500 quickly showed us, that support right around 740. And then was really waiting for earnings. We did have Google and Tesla both reporting earnings on Wednesday after hours. And you can see here, there was a massive drop off on Wednesday going into Thursday. Let's go ahead and take a look here from, we'll just go look at top to bottom on that last wick there on Wednesday, right before market close. From top to bottom, the S&P 500 had a change of roughly 1.3%. If you were to have bought on Wednesday near close thinking, hey, this is going to be awesome, Google and Tesla, they're not going to be doing as much CapEx, they're not going to be bumping up the numbers, you would have been sorely wrong, and the S&P 500 dropped around 1.3% from top to bottom. Now, let's go take a look at Google here. Google reported earnings, and it wasn't so much their earnings that really dragged the price down. You can see here that their earnings per share was, up 6.2. They beat, surprised by 216%. Their revenue was up by 2.89%. That was all good across the board. It was that they increased their guidance from 15 billion to 200 billion for their CapEx spending next year. So that's a huge bump. So they raised from 15 billion to 200 billion, and also their cash flow was also looked at kind of negatively as well. And that caused Google to drop, we'll say high there on Wednesday to a low on open on Thursday of around 6.72%. And you can see here throughout Thursday, Friday, Google really hasn't done anything to bounce back from that initial beatdown. So it's going to be pretty hard with the recovery here. We'll see if Google begins to make its way. And then we had Tesla. Tesla got hit quite a bit harder. We can see here on Wednesday, we'll just take the number in here and kind of drag it down to open on Thursday. It was down around 10.25% from close on Wednesday to open on Thursday, and movement and momentum. From that point, you can see that Tesla continued to drag down an additional, we'll just say, almost 7%. So 10, 7, nearly 17% of Tesla was wiped out just within 2 days. Tesla hasn't had a really good track record in the last few months, falling from a high of 450 back in May, not that long ago, to where it's at right now. Wow, it is way down there. Okay, let me go ahead and see from top to bottom. If you had bought Tesla in May, you would be down roughly 31% right now. So that is some ginormous movement there with Tesla. And of course, that did affect, we already saw SPY be affected by that. Going into next week, we do have Meta earnings. We can see right in here. That's coming up on after hours, I believe, on Wednesday. We also have Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon all coming up next week. So these are all things that we're looking at going into next week. So yeah, that's the quick market update. Now, weekly dividend payout. We did receive some dividends this week. These are the final payments that we were looking for going into the end of July. So these were all paid out to us. So let's go ahead and pop over to our dividends tab and take a look here. For this week, the 19th to the 25th of July, we received 3 dividend payouts. Our very first one started out with the IWMI, and these have hit our account now. These were showing pending, but after hours are paid out. So we made $1,310.63 from IWMI. This was based off our 2,097 shares. They paid out 0.625 per share, giving that total amount there of 1,310. Next up was BTCI. This is the NEOS Bitcoin High Income ETF. We have 300 shares of this one. It paid out 0.6458, totaling $193.74. And the final payout this week was IAUI. This is the NEOS Gold High Income ETF. We have 280 shares. It paid out 0.4855 per share for $135.94. So those were all of our dividends that we received this week, plus every single day that I was spending something on my Robinhood Gold card, I would be going into the app and I'd be doing the redemption. It doesn't matter how much was on that thing, I would be hitting the redemption on a daily. So back on the 19th on Sunday, I got $3.35, then $9.89, 90 cents, $2.46, $3.85, $1.99. And that all added up to $22.44 of redemptions that we took this week during the week. We did do quite a bit of traveling this week. We were gone Wednesday, Thursday. We got out and got to explore some really fun stuff with the kids. They got to go on some rides and do some exciting stuff. So our dividends paid us while we were out on the go, investing on the go. And in the week, we were able to net a total of $1,662.75 of cash from our dividends and our cashback that we received from the Robinhood cashback. So that is in itself pretty dang awesome. So that is the dividends that we collected this week. And like I said, the market had some very volatile move this week. So we did do some buys and we continue to buy. So let's pop over to our buys and sells. Now, this week was a unique one. I was looking forward to the Magnificent 10 Growth and Daily Income ETF. I myself, I believe I had in my head saying with earnings going on in the future, I was going to sit back and wait for this one to drop into the $20, $22 range. And I got a little bit trigger happy and I pulled and bought 10 shares of ticker symbol TMGN. This is the new Tap Alpha Magnificent 10 Growth and Daily Income ETF. we did go ahead and start off by buying 10 shares at 23.50. I posted over in the Discord server. So TMGM after earnings on Wednesday. Let's go look at the last 5 days. So here, after earnings on Wednesday, this dropped off a cliff. You can see it dropped off a cliff right there. We were able to use that. So we bought at 23.50. So here, we were able to buy at, let's see, 23.50 is right there. So after hours, it did drop to 23.50. We were able to gather a good amount, 10 shares. 10 shares, that's our normal buy. I like to buy about $250 every week. So we bought $235 worth of TMGN. And what happened going into Thursday, Friday? Well, Google, Tesla, and a lot of the other mag companies also continue to sell off, dragging it down to 22.75 right in here. So we can see it continued to fall, 22 down over here, 22.75 right in here. So as this continued to sell off, I sat back and I watched and I said, you know what, it's only 10 shares. I collected 10 shares right up in this range. I'm going to continue to dollar cost average into this. So we were able to buy at 22.75, and this filled at 12.39, near close on the 23rd. So let's go ahead and look at the 23rd right in here. And right before close, so right here towards around close, right? So we already had that bottom in the early morning. We had some recovery, had some resistance right up in this range, and it began to pull back a bit. Here's our support. So I just went ahead and put in a buy right in there at 22.75, and it went out and allowed us to buy 10 additional shares, kind of pulling our cost basis from that $23 price down a bit. So those are the two buys that we did this week. So we bought 10 shares at 23.50, 10 additional shares at 22.75 on TMGN. So next up, how did those buys affect our dividend portfolio and income breakdown going forward? So let's pop over to our dividend portfolio here, and we can see TMGN is now added into our dividend portfolio. We have 20 shares. Our adjusted cost basis is 23.12. You get this by, and you get your total cost basis here of 462.40 and divided by the amount of shares that you own. So it's at 23.12 and some change. So we can see per our buy price, we're down around $10.20 or 2.21%, but the entire, not only Google and Tesla fell off a cliff after those capex, the other companies as well kind of fell a bit down as well, because they're expecting, well, if Google and Tesla, Google had really good earnings, but they increased their capex spending. They believe that Meta will probably do the same, Microsoft will do the same, Apple probably not so much, Amazon will probably do the same. And the market did sell off a bit, so we're just kind of buying in right now. And I'll continue to dollar cost average into positions that I feel would be net positive for the account into the future, right? And Mag 10 is a pretty solid opportunity going forward. So that was added into our portfolio. You can see right in here. Here's our two buys on the 22 and 23rd. This is a fresh buy on TMGN. So there's our cost basis, started at 23.50. We had 0 shares. We added 10 shares. This increased our income from 0. So here on TMGN, there's no estimated. If you were to go to their website right now, they don't have anything at the moment that is estimated. With the volatility of the Magnificent 10, I would say that T-SPY is at a 0.3 tap alpha, the TDAC, sorry, T-SPY is at 0.3, TDAC is an average of 0.38. I went right in between for now. I'll adjust it, when they do their very first dividend, but I went ahead and just estimated at around a 0.34. It may be higher than that when it does come out. But we can see here, just based off that, our income will increase by roughly $3.40 on a monthly basis, or about $40.80 on a yearly basis. And then again, I couldn't help but buy more. Once the market sold off and continued to sell off, I went ahead and purchased 10 additional shares, dropping our cost basis from $23.50 to $23.12. So we went from 10 shares plus 10 to now 20, increasing our income by the exact same amount and all that. So just within this week, we're hoping, whatever, but we're gonna expect our yearly income to increase by $81.60 and our monthly income to increase by $6.80, or roughly $7 adjusted. So we'll see how it all plays out. Let me know down in the comment section below, have you guys heard of the Tap Alpha Magnificent 10 Growth and Daily ETF? I'm really interested and have been interested in the existing Tap Alpha funds, the TDAC, which tracks the NASDAQ, and the T-SPY, which tracks the S&P 500. And those have been performing really, really well, despite the volatility of the market. They've been able to grow and exceed the NEOS funds. They pay a nice amount. I don't use the full amount of dividends that's paid out to me for paying down my expenses. I'm able to buy back more shares on a weekly, monthly basis. So it's been working out really, really nicely. So despite this saying that our cost basis in here is $486,000, a good amount of capital that was paid to us in dividends has been reinvested, and this should have lowered our cost basis, but I really haven't been tracking all of that. So this in itself, it's not in actuality. And we can see over here the dividends that have been paid out to us. Here's our adjusted realized gain and loss with those dividends that have been paid out if we had kept them in the account. But we didn't. we used a good portion of those to pay down our expenses. So that is our updated dividend portfolio and income breakdown expectancy going into August. We'll get a full ex-dividend for TMGM and actually receive some dividends. Now, next up, our margin journal. Let's go ahead and take a look at our margin journal ending for this week. So it is now officially over. It's Saturday. The week is now behind us for the 19th to the 25th of July. If we pop over to Robinhood in here, we can see that our margin account is sitting at $342,227.30. We pop over here. Here's where we're at. We put in our portfolio value as of Saturday. So here's our last Saturday portfolio value, and that market did pull back quite a bit this week. So we went from 346 down to 342. We did have in this week, we did make two buys. We paid $462.45 out to buy those shares of TMGN. We did have dividends rolled into the account from the IWMI, BTCI, and IAUI of $1,640.31. And we did have some cashback redemption of $22.76. So we should have, with the dividends and the cash and the only buy there of 462, we should have been, pretty good net change. We lowered our margin down quite a bit, but not a lot. We did have our margin interest charge us a bit this week as well. So this week was our very first full month of using that margin. So we were charged $476.03 for the margin that we're borrowing to invest into T-SPY and TDAC. And that's within our average monthly interest. We're expecting to pay right around $484.92 of interest, and we paid $476, so that's within our expectancy right now. And with that margin interest charge, the dividends that were paid out, and the cash in buys, we still adjusted our margin use from $130,313.30 last week down to $129,588.44. So we're slowly working on paying down the margin. Obviously, this next week coming up right now is the final week of July. And now going into August, I'm going to have to move some cash out to, once again, pay the mortgage, pay the car, and pay down the credit card bill. And we've done some trips this month. We've done quite a few trips out, for the family, and that did bump our credit card bill just a little bit higher. We'll actually show in here when we do cash out, it'll show we transferred cash out. So here back in the past, we transferred cash out to pay that credit card, mortgage, and car. We'll be doing that probably within this next week as well. It just hasn't happened yet because we always wait till the very last few days, and then we transfer the exact amount needed into the cash account, our spending hub, to pay down the mortgage, to pay down the car loan, and we pay down the credit card back down to zero. And that's going to increase our margin a bit, but we also have some dividends that are going to get paid out in the upcoming week. So it will cover the whole process as it happens, but there's our margin journal for the week, and there is our information. As you can see in here, our margin use, 129, 588, 44. 129, 588, 44. So going into this week, everything matches up in terms of our current portfolio value right here and our margin use going into this upcoming week. So everything is tracking as it is. We're still at a very healthy 65% margin buffer, and our portfolio value, as we said, 342, and our daily interest 1607. That's all correct. So let's pop over into the Robinhood account now, and we can see in here we have the TMGN. There's our 20 shares, and our portfolio on Friday is net positive by 0.37%. But the reason, the market was down on Friday, how are you positive? Well, because those dividends that rolled into the account on Friday, they increased our net account value by $1,640.01. So if we look at here, we take away $1,600. We were actually negative on Friday by around $350, but because the dividends hit our account and counted as positive, it kind of bumped up the actual loss on Friday to be positive. So that's kind of how that worked out. Now on the week, we can see our weekly move. Last week, when the market closed there on Saturday, our margin account was 346,799. Go over here, boop, 346,777. Is that 777? 342,799, somewhere around there. They may have adjusted a little bit of numbers between where we got this number at either Saturday or Sunday and where we're at now, but it's pretty close. So all in all, throughout the week, we did lose about $4,500 of account value, or we're down right around 1.32% over this past week. And that's not too bad. When you take the S&P 500 into consideration, and we take a look at all this movement that we had this week. So here we open up on Monday and we close on Friday. We're down around 1.10%. In that, in the S&P 500 alone. And then we also have NASDAQ to consider, which is a good chunk of our portfolio. So here's our open on Monday, and here's our close on Friday. This is down around 2.87% on the week. So nearly 3% right there within the NASDAQ area. So I feel we did very good within our portfolio. It'd be nice if you can go over here and adjust this to show your weekly change. So we have last change, your equity, today's return, total return, and it just doesn't show you that, which is fine, I suppose. So guys, that is going to be it for today's video. If you guys have any comments or questions for this recap of the week, let me know down in the comment section below. But overall, week 30 was pretty positive in terms of what went on this week within our dividend portfolio and over. If you guys didn't catch my Fidelity portfolio recap of the options, you guys should definitely check that out, because we are working towards getting back into the option and looking at options on SPMO as well. So definitely be subscribing, staying tuned for additional videos. And if you guys did enjoy this content, definitely smash that thumbs up. It really does help out the channel. And drop a comment down below. I would really appreciate it. So guys, that is going to be it from me. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.